Can you hear me, all of you? Anurag, Danish, good morning, good morning. Yes, long time. So we cover our topics on the basis of the subjects. So we finished polity. There's some classes, I'm told, for governance, couple of them, which we'll have on the weekend, but I don't want to disturb the schedule that we had planned. So we are starting with IR topics. Good morning, Survi. Good morning. Okay, so I hope I'm streaming fine for all of you. Bharat, Krishna. Okay, good morning. Some problem with this. Just a minute. Look at this. I think the.
It's fine. It's just that.
We'll maximize it. Or the side one, the side one. Yeah. Ah, yes. Okay. Fine. Fine. Let's start off then. So some of you are new to the class. The session now we're starting off with international relations. International relations. Okay, and to this we'll also add internal security. International relation is part of paper 2 along with polity and governance, GS paper 2, and security is part of, yes, paper 3, GS. But these two are related, and the questions that are asked approximately 40-50 marks यहाँ पूछते हैं, about 40-50 marks here. So you can keep this approximately at 100 marks, and that's a sizable amount of marks you have in total. Okay. Hi Divya. Hi Divya. Good morning. Good morning. Oh yes, Divya. I have talked to you earlier also in the geography class. Okay. Jagriti. Good morning. Anurag. Yes. Okay. So these are the topics here. Now we had one workshop, okay, a couple of days ago on IR security. It's on the YouTube. I'll recommend all of you see that once to give an idea about the orientation. And I'll continue, okay, topically from now on. Now, for this topic, your readings kya honge? What will be your readings? Now, see, I do not see any one book which can help you. Most of the topics are very, very current affairs based. Okay, so any current affairs based, I'll always recommend you must have a good idea. You must look up into your newspapers. There is one important source you can refer to is the articles on ORF. Okay, this Observer Research Foundation. It's a very good think tank. Lot of policies of the governments are influenced by the researches here. ORF is a very important, update whatever you can. And of course, PIB. But the problem is the PIB does not update all the foreign related issues on a regular basis. Whenever there's something very, very important, only then PIB comes up with IR. Otherwise, other topics of GS are fairly well covered under PIB, except for the foreign relation aspect. Okay, ये भी आप देख सकते हैं. Okay, and then there are a couple of books I had recommended. And see, foreign relations and international geopolitics issues, they are open to a lot of interpretations. It is not like a regular GS topic where the facts you can by heart. They're based on interpretations, understanding, it's about appreciation. So foreign relations always require some bit of commentary-based reading. So there are think tanks who talk about what is happening. There are some scholars who talk about what's happening. It's always nice to read the opinion of a couple of scholars. Okay, so in the workshop, I had mentioned a couple of books. I'll just repeat those one or two names, not all of them, of course. So one book will be this book, by Shiv Shankar Menon. Okay, the book is Choices by Shiv Shankar Menon. He was our foreign secretary, and plus he also served as our security advisor. Shiv Shankar Menon, Choices hai. There is one more book by our present foreign minister, The India Way. The India Way. And this is important because it gives you the contemporary and the present, a perspective of India's foreign policy thinking, Jayashankar's India Way. And I will like you to keep track of some of the articles which are written by Harsh Pant. Harsh Pant is also one of the important founder members and on the board of ORF also. इनके articles important है. Harsh Pant, you also have this book by David Mellon. Okay, does the elephant dance? Does the elephant dance? This is a book by David Mellon. David, M-A-L-O-N-E, Mellon. So if I'm asked to give a sense of priority, I'll say this is an important one. These two are important. आप ये दो थोड़ा ढंग से पढ़िएगा. And articles do keep coming up. Okay, so this is your reference. Unfortunately, I can't recommend any one book which is comprehensive, okay, because there's lot of redundancy in that. The questions on IR are not so much about the old historical aspects. They're very contemporary in nature, and many of them want your opinion on some of the developments. So I think this should suffice, and plus whatever class notes we have, the newspaper reading and the ORF. Okay, so this is your reference. Now, just to highlight this point, all of you, देखो IR, okay, IR, security, social development, environment issues, issues of governance, which are based on equity. Okay, so ये कुछ topics I always consider as the core of GS. This is in some ways the whole objective of whatever you're reading. So इसको आप ignore नहीं करना. And in these topics, apart from the facts that you must remember, you also need to understand the philosophy of whatever India is doing, the philosophy and the larger mindset with which we operate. So it's not about कि आप सिर्फ facts याद करके हो जाएगा. Because if you look at the questions asked, the questions are very opinion-based questions. So होता क्या है कि many of us miss out on this part. The philosophy क्या है? You must know the roots of whatever we are saying. You must know the philosophical underpinnings of whatever we are taking as our priority approaches. Okay, so make sure you don't get trapped in the facts alone. ये तो important है. इसके बिना तो आप आंसर लिख नहीं पाओगे. But ये भी बहुत important है. Philosophy, the principles. Okay, the framework that we require. In some ways, आपके GS का जो core principle है, वो यहीं से आता है. Whatever we are doing. Okay, our preamble, what it talks about, our underpinnings of what our intentions are, the part of a good nation making. ठीक है, तो इस पे हम थोड़ा ज्यादा ध्यान देंगे. And then I'll move on towards what are the facts, what are the developments, and so on. ठीक है? So having said this, now I want you to have a broad outline of India's foreign policy and evolution of India's foreign relation. A broad outline. एक आपको historical perspective पहले दे देते हैं आपको. It's something of historical perspective. Historical perspective. ठीक है, so I'll keep telling you the facts. तो आप क्या करो अपने पेज में, if this is your page, try to write these facts on your left hand side, and I'll keep adding something here, I'll keep adding something here. So fact number 1 here, fact number 2 here. So keep it like a timeline. Okay, in a historical perspective, I'm giving you a type of a timeline. This will give you an overall idea about what is happening. You go down like this, okay, and keep writing whatever I tell you here. Okay, that's how you organize your page. Hi, Raj Ratna, Prerna. Yes, good morning, all of you. Okay. So now, if you look at India's, okay, my heading is timeline and the evolving the evolving international relations of India. So I presume you know our prime ministers, sequence mein, because they are the ones who have been the founding. So we have the first prime minister of ours, Jawaharlal Nehru ji, the first prime minister, and 1964 mein, okay, Jawaharlal Nehru. Uske baad we had Lal Bahadur Shastri. Okay, so lot of foreign policies based on the personality who they were. Lal Bahadur Shastri. Then we have Indira Gandhi. Okay, Indira Gandhi. And then there was a phase of couple of quick, very fast changes. We had Morarji Desai. Okay, we have Charan Singh. Okay, Shri Charan Singh. And then again we had Indira Gandhi. Yes. So this was a transition phase. We again had Indira Gandhi. Okay, and this time she got assassinated. Okay, 84 assassination. 84 assassination. And then we have Shri Rajiv Gandhi. Okay, and uske baad, okay, again there was a phase of turmoil. Okay, so uske baad we had series of VP Singh. VP Singh. We had Deve Gowda, Shri Deve Gowda. We had I.K. Gujral. We had I.K. Gujral. And then we also had the 1991 reforms, jo hua hamara, because we had Narasimha, of course, I forgot Narasimha Rao. ठीक है, तो इसी के साथ हम रख लेते हैं, because this was not as remarkable, but ठीक है. So we have PV Narasimha Rao. Okay, actually all of this happened with Vajpayee government also for a short while. Okay, so I think I should put this below here. तो आप थोड़ा साइड रख लीजिए आप इसको. This is 90, 91, 92 का reforms. इसको हम साथ में रख रहे हैं साइड में. Okay, because there was some changes, but not as remarkable. Okay, and then we had the Vajpayee government, a short one. Okay, Vajpayee government we had, and this till about 2004 tak. Okay, 4 tak Vajpayee government. This was what is called as the NDA 1. NDA 1. NDA 1. Uske baad we have Dr. Manmohan Singh. Dr. Manmohan Singh, so almost 10 years, 2013-14 tak. And now we have the present government, okay, Shri Narendra Modi ji. Okay, and this 14 onwards continues. So you must have a sense of this timeline. Okay, all of you have this sense of timeline, all of you. So I will repeat this for you, because all our foreign policies have been influenced by our governments and the leaders. So we have Jawaharlal Nehru. Have an idea about the time, okay? 64, 47 say 64. Okay. Sorry? Yeah, election, I'm not talking about post-independence. I'm talking about. Yes, after Republic, we had elections, but I'm talking about post-independence. They were the main architects of our foreign policy. Okay. Jawaharlal Nehru, Shastri ji, very short, 1965 का जो war था, okay, Pakistan war, उनका main वही वाला था, and then next year Tashkent में he passed away. Okay, Lal Bahadur Shastri, Indira Gandhi. Then this is again a short phase of Morarji Desai and Charan Singh. Nothing much really happens here. And then Indira Gandhi again takes over. Indira Gandhi के time में 1971 and 1972, this was a very important phase. 71, 72. 71 was Indo-Soviet peace treaty बना था, and 71 was also the Bangladesh war. 71 was Indo-Soviet peace treaty, okay, plus also the Bangladesh war. And Jawaharlal Nehru ke time mein 1961 mein we had the China war, which India lost. It was one of those major losses for India. Okay? So Morarji Desai, Charan Singh ke pehle all of this has happened. And 72 was a very important event which we call as the Shimla Agreement. Okay, 1972 was the Shimla Agreement. Okay, now Rajiv Gandhi ke time mein nothing dramatic happened in some ways. Even then, lot of peace accords were signed. Lot of peace accords, and सबसे important peace accord एक treaty था, Indo-Sri Lanka peace treaty. Indo-Sri Lanka peace treaty. And in some ways, this was one of the biggest blunders in our Indian foreign policy, where India had sent troops under IPKF, Indian Peacekeeping Force for Sri Lanka. Rajiv Gandhi ke time mein India-Sri Lanka peace treaty and the misadventure of IPKF, Indian Peacekeeping Force, which was sent to Sri Lanka. Usi ke backlash mein Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated by the LTT. Yes. Acha, uske baad, then we have this P.V. Narasimha Rao. Now, this was a time of economic reforms. A time of economic reforms, P.V. Narasimha Rao ke time mein. And a lot of things happened during this time. And this was the beginning of what we call as the Look East policy. Look East policy. So P.V. Narasimha Rao ke time se what happened was a very important determinant of foreign policy started to become our economic issues. Economic issues के साथ में US का involvement थोड़ा बढ़ गया. Okay, P.V. Narasimha Rao's times, I said there is economic reforms. There is this policy called as Look East policy. And Look East policy is an economic thing. India trying to develop its connects with Southeast Asia and East Asia, because during this time, the ASEAN had become a very powerful organization. India was somewhere trying to link itself with the ASEAN. Okay, and then, of course, the economic issues, and US now becomes a part of our increasing engagement in the world affairs. Okay, now, VP Singh, Deve Gowda, nothing much happened. But I.K. Gujral ke time mein, we have a concept which came up called as, okay, the principle of engaging our neighbors. Okay, so it was a principle where we said that we'll start to talk and normalize our relationship with neighbors. We will not asked for some things in return in a big way. So I.K. Gujral's neighborhood policy, neighborhood जो policy था, which was about non-reciprocal a relationship of India with the neighbors. Okay, neighborhood first wala policy हमारा शुरू हुआ with I.K. Gujral, ठीक है? So this was an important event. Then Vajpayee ke time mein, now lot of things starts changing. Now see, if you look at India's political evolution, much of India's political evolution has been the legacy of the Congress. Okay, if you look at Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, and even these governments, P.V. Narasimha Rao, or even the smaller ones, more or less, they were the legacies of the Indian National Congress. But pehli baar major break hota hai from the Congress when Vajpayee government comes in. Although these also were an alternative to Congress, but did not survive long to have any big influence on India's foreign policy. But with Vajpayee, there was clearly an alternative thinking beyond the Congress. So Vajpayee ke time mein bhi yahi hua, and the present government, Shri Narendra Ji Modi ke time mein bhi wahi ho raha hai. So these are two phases where the foreign policies ho, economic thinking hai, development model hai, all of these are impacted by an alternative model beyond the Congress. So Vajpayee ke time mein we had this big leap here, and Vajpayee ke time mein there was a very important development, which was the again the Kargil war, we had, and plus we had the second nuclear test, 1998 mein, yes, the second nuclear test. So during Vajpayee's time, we had the infamous Kargil war. In fact, where Vajpayee, as the leader, he also went out of their way to normalize the relationship with Pakistan. So काफी सारे summits हुए थे. Lahore summit हुआ, Agra summit हुआ, एक bus diplomacy शुरू हुआ. So Pakistan के साथ में we tried to engage with them. So Agra summit we had the Lahore summit, we had the beginning of what we call as the bus diplomacy, but nothing worked out. And the more important event under Vajpayee was, I said, the Pokhran test of 1998. India declared itself as a nuclear nation with its nuclear doctrine. During Vajpayee's time, India declared itself as a nuclear nation with its nuclear doctrine. This was Vajpayee's time. And 2004, Vajpayee government, it runs its entire course, 98, 99, 2004 तक, कि पहले दो बार और वाजपेयी जी आए थे, once for a very short time, but then Manmohan Singh's government. Now, Manmohan Singh's government was also a very remarkable phase in India's foreign policy. Is time mein, the economic issues were becoming more and more important. Plus, a very important development was the Indo-US civil nuclear deal. India was accepted as a de facto nuclear power. A lot of nuclear technology for peaceful purposes, they decided they could share. So this is the beginning where India is now asking to become a member of the NSG, the nuclear supply group. Yes. So this was a very important development during Manmohan Singh ji. In fact, this is along with the nuclear test, this is lot of assertive Indian diplomacy starting here. We are no longer willing to listen to what others tell us. We are charting our own course. And Manmohan Singh ka jo pehla stint tha, he was the prime minister for 2 terms. The first stint was more remarkable. Second stint was more around corruption, 2G scam, coal scam. The government literally had paralyzed by then. Okay? So Manmohan Singh government, these two are economic issues, have taken a precedence now, and Indo-US nuclear deal. This was a very remarkable achievement. And since Modi ji, okay, again, things have taken a different turn. We'll talk about this eventually. So this is a very quick idea about, okay, the prime ministers of India and what were some of the important events. Did you all note down, all of you? All of you, while you're listening to the conversations, make sure you're making your notes also. Ab likhte rahein isko. Okay, so I repeat here, we're starting off with Jawaharlal Nehru, Lal Bahadur Shastri, Indira Gandhi. In fact, I will want to put Indira Gandhi also in a box because ye bhi bahut important departure tha. Okay, these are some of the important momentous changes hua because until Indira Gandhi, it was all about NAM. It was more about the moralistic stand. Okay, 1971 Bangladesh war and Shimla agreement mein some of the tonality of India's foreign policy changed. Okay, she was the first one to break out of Nehru's NAM model. Okay, the first prime minister who started to slowly break out of the NAM, okay, model of India's foreign policy, because she clearly sided with, okay, the Soviet Union. 1971 Indo-Soviet peace treaty hua, 71 mein Bangladesh, because one of the principles of India's foreign policy was Panchsheel, और Panchsheel under में था non-interference in others' internal matters. लेकिन हमने यहाँ पर intervene किया. We sent our forces, we're part of the Bangladesh war. We resulted in the liberation of Bangladesh. We created Bangladesh here. This was very much against the Panchsheel principles that Nehru was talking about. So इसलिए इंदिरा गांधी का भी stint important है. 71 का war, 71 का treaty and 1972 का Shimla agreement. Okay, I'll talk about Shimla agreement after some time. Okay, Shimla agreement. Then I said Morarji Desai, Charan Singh, you can ignore. ये वाला phase of Indira Gandhi was not as remarkable. It was a more or less a continuation of what was happening. Okay, then Rajiv Gandhi, PV Narasimha Rao, यहाँ पे पता इकोनॉमिक इश्यूज हैं, इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म्स हो रहा था, लुकीस्ट पॉलिसी, एंड वी ट्राइड टू गेट क्लोजर टू द आसियान. Okay, so this was a part of the Lukist policy. Vajpayee government was, I said, a very big departure. Okay, Vajpayee government, I mean, he comes to power 97, 98, and साथ इन्होंने, we had this nuclear say test. Before Vajpayee government, Narasimha Rao also tried to have the nuclear test, but somehow the US used to get wind of it and they pressurized us not to do it. But this was done very clandestine, very planned way mein. We did it and we came up with our nuclear doctrine immediately of no first use and credible deterrence wala policy. So the Pokhran test of 1998, he also engaged with Pakistan in a big way. Then Manmohan Singh government, and finally our Sri Narendra Ji's present government of the last two terms, 2014 and 2019 onwards. Have you all got the line here, all of you? Okay, let's continue then. ये timeline आप याद रखना. Now, next week, देखो. So although we say as a nation, we are 1947 onwards, 1950, 51, 52, formal elections, okay, we become a republic 50 onwards. But India's foreign policy का जो roots हैं, the roots are older. The roots of Indian foreign policy, and I'll say the principles of Indian foreign policy, these are much older. You can go back to 1919 ka Khilafat movement. The Khilafat movement is something like, okay, India stands for some foreign issues. Okay, we're talking about the Ottoman Empire, right? The Ottoman Empire, and we tried to link India's freedom struggle with the Khilafat movement. Okay, the Caliphate restoration की बात हो रही थी. So somewhere the Khilafat movement shows that there is a global perspective. There is a global perspective to India's polity and India's freedom struggle. There is a global perspective to India's polity and India's freedom struggle. So we are not isolated, okay, the way we thought we were. Okay. इसके बाद में another major event was 1938 में. Okay. 1936 में भी and 1938 में in particular. 1938 was the Haripura session. The Haripura session. इसमें the president of INC was Subhash Bose. Okay. Subhash Bose, he assumed the presidency. In this time, we had started to talk about, write down, India had started to talk about universal disarmament and collective security. India had started to talk about universal disarmament, okay, and collective security. Universal disarmament and the objective of collective security for India and the world. India and the world. So somewhere we are talking in the context of the world wars. World War I ho chuka tha, World War II, okay, is all over the place. So we said that ये होना चाहिए इंडिया का, okay, foreign policy thinking. So seeds यहाँ पर आ रहा है. In fact, before this, 1932 में भी, 1932 में Jawaharlal Nehru said, right now, in 1932, Jawaharlal Nehru, he had explicitly mentioned that India's freedom struggle cannot be in isolation to the global concerns. India's freedom struggle cannot be in isolation to global concerns. Okay, and India sees itself. India sees itself as the conscience keeper of collective wisdom of humanity. India sees itself as the conscience keeper of the collective wisdom of the humanity. India sees itself as the conscience keeper. So, ये जो words हैं, this tell us that there is a strong moralistic overtone. There is strong moralistic overtone. Okay, we are trying to develop a thinking which is global in nature. Okay, so Nehru ji ne, in fact, Nehru ji had his secretary as Mr. Ram Manohar Lohia. Okay, and they both of them had coined this idea that India should see itself as the conscience keeper of the collective wisdom of humanity. Okay, so all of these are pre-independence. In fact, 1946 mein, in 1946, there is a very famous speech of Nehru on 7th of September. Okay, very famous speech of Nehru. In 7th of September, he says that India's freedom struggle and India's nation making is based on principles that include now important words. It include anti-imperialism, That includes anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism. It's based on anti-racism, anti-racism, okay, along with friendship and solidarity, and with the objective of friendship and solidarity, okay, with all Asia and Africa. Okay, India's nation making, India's freedom struggle is based on the principles that include the important 3 words, okay? Anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, anti-racism, and with the objective of friendship and solidarity with all of Asia and Africa, okay, to ensure a just, and equitable, okay, world and economic order. A just and an equitable world and economic order. ये जो powerful words हैं, okay, and this is even before India becomes independence. So this tells you why India talks about NAM, why India talks about autonomy, why India is so careful in terms of the great power relations. ठीक है, तो इसमें एक commentary था that says that India's foreign policy thinking जो है, and overall India का जो world view है, India's foreign policy thinking and India's world view is heavily influenced by the historical distrust with the great powers of the world. Because Hamesha India has been at the receiving end. If you look at invasions, India's economic plunder during the British times, look at how Indian soldiers were forced to be part of the global world wars of the British, of the Europe, India's exploitation, where India was denied its industrialization development, where India's resources were siphoned off. हमेशा इंडिया का जो historical जो seed है ना, mindset है, it always is around that these great powers are not to be trusted. हमेशा रहा, अभी भी देखो, we are not very keen to align ourselves as we are entirely towards Russia, because while we are talking about Russia, at the same time we say Russia आप भी गलत काम कर रहे हो, do not fight this war in Ukraine. We are not entirely out Russia types. उधर US के साथ में बहुत careful हैं. We are part of the Quad dialogue, Malabar exercises. We're talking about technology transfer. God knows what all we are doing. Yet, we're very careful. We say we don't belong to the US camp at all. We're saying with Britain also, okay, we are very, very careful. So historically, we always have been very careful about the great powers. Kahin na kahin, it is that kuch fear psychosis bol lo, talk about the concerns that we had because of the history of being exploited. Hamesha we have been distrustful of the great powers of the world. So China ke saath wahi kahani hamara hai. So hamesha India, if you look at India's foreign policy, it has been a very fine balancing act. It has been a very fine balancing act. Okay, India का बहुत important objective रहा है to maintain our autonomy, okay, and our sovereignty. कि ऐसा कुछ नहीं हो जाए where our sovereignty gets compromised, our autonomy gets compromised. Okay, we cherish our freedom deeply. Okay, we cherish our freedom deeply. Okay, I think it was the trauma of those colonial years. That's why we have a heart out for developing countries. We talk about Africa, we talk about Central Asia, we talk about the problems of Southeast Asia. Okay, somewhere Latin America की concerns हैं. So always ये तीन चीज have been influential in India's foreign policy thinking. That हमारा पूरा thinking has been a very, very fine balancing act. Balancing act between what? Balancing act between ideologies. Okay, ना ही हम capitalist हैं और ना ही हम communist हैं. Okay, very fine balancing act between extreme freedom type of democracy at the same time. Okay, we are not the military rule type. Okay, we have a very fine balancing act. We talk about this, the federal system. देखो आप center भी है और federal भी है. So everywhere आप हर जगह देखोगे इंडिया का वो balancing act रहा है. That's why we are an example of mixed economy. We are an example of a welfare state with socialist ideologies, but at the same time we have not abandoned capitalism entirely. Okay, we are not pacifists. We don't want to fight a war. Yet we have the second, third, fourth, fifth largest navy, air force, okay, and the army. Okay, we always talk about global disarmament, but we also have our nuclear bombs. ठीक है, तो ये बड़ा interesting set of contradictions है इंडिया में, but I will call this more as a type of a balancing act. Okay, बहुत ही finely balancing act. Okay, we don't want to fight a war, but we have fought wars. Okay, we don't want to become hardcore capitalists, but we have economic reforms of liberalization opening up. Okay, we are not hardcore communists, but we are a socialist in our objectives. We don't want to belong to any camp. Okay, so आप non-aligned बोलो या फिर multi-aligned बोलो. आज के डेट में जयशंकर जी says that our foreign policy is moving towards multi-alignment. Essentially we say हम कोई भी एक ब्लॉक के पार्ट होने वाले हैं नहीं. So we want to maintain our autonomy at all cost. We want to maintain our sovereignty at all cost. हमारा freedom हमारे लिए बहुत important है. हमारा ideals of our independent existence बहुत important हमारे लिए है. And all of that probably is seen as a consequence of the historical distrust that we have because of our colonial history and the history of invasions where we have been exploited. ठीक है, तो ये एक टाइप का हमारा important determinant. I'll come back again on this. ठीक है, this is where I think our thinking was shaped. Okay, let's move on now. I can move on now? Okay, let's move on. So now what happened was with our Prime Minister, okay, Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay, Jawaharlal Nehru. Now, this is the phase of optimistic, okay, morality based foreign policy. Optimistic, morality based foreign policy. And यहाँ पर in this phase, a very important, you can say, the thinking was that India is a part of the global concerns thinking. इसलिए हम बात कर रहे हैं about the African and Asian solidarity. Talking about the African and the Asian solidarity की बात कर रहे हैं हम. Okay, part of the global concerns. And somewhere ये discussions में क्या हुआ? India's internal national interests were not explicitly okay, the focus of India's foreign policy. So यहाँ पर it was the phase of India's magnanimity बोलते हैं. It was the phase of India's magnanimous. We are trying to be large-hearted. Okay, so we are trying to be good for the others. So India's internal interests, India's जो internal concerns थे, they were not explicitly part of India's foreign policy. Okay, we are magnanimous in terms of our global concerns. Okay, and इसमें क्या था? Our Gandhian principles were very important. The Gandhian जो principles थे, Gandhian principles of ahimsa, the Gandhian principles of satyagraha, Gandhian principles of sarvodaya. Okay, Gandhian principles of ahimsa, Gandhian principles of satyagraha, Gandhian principles of sarvodaya, goodness for everybody, sarvodaya. And we were more focused on equality. We were more focused on equality. We were more focused on non-discriminatory, okay, global world order, an equal world order and a non-discriminatory world order. More focus on freedom and social justice for all. More focused on freedom and social justice for all. Social justice for all. ठीक है, तो ये हमारा underpinnings बन गया. And understand, please, that Jawaharlal Nehru is a protege of Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, so ये lofty idealisms हैं. With our magnanimity, okay, these are some of the lofty idealism that we have. Lofty idealisms, okay, shaped our initial foreign policy and our thinking. Okay, so यहाँ पर हम देख रहे हैं दो चीज हो रहा है. On one hand, I said, कहीं ना कहीं एक fear psychosis है. Fear psychosis that I will be trapped by the foreign powers. Okay, the Russia, the US, okay, and World War II has ended. Okay, we'll be trapped. This was always in the mind. Second is, we come from his legacy of Gandhian principles, the legacy of ahimsa, satyagraha, lofty idealism. So we wanted to carry forward that legacy. Okay, so this was the underpinning here. Now, in 1948, Jaipur session. In 1948, Jaipur session. First line क्या है? कहाँ पर? India is part of the global concerns thinking. So we are concerned about the world at large. So इस phase में the whole allegation is India दुनिया की ज़्यादा सोच रहा है, अपनी कम सोच रहा है. What concerns our interest, हमें उसमें ज़्यादा ध्यान नहीं है. तो world का कैसे poverty हटे, world से कैसे we can remove discrimination, how do we remove racism across the world, how do we help other countries get their freedom, how do we remove colonialism from entire world. So we are more concerned about the global things, okay, with the African Asian solidarity. And somewhere I said that our internal national interests were not explicitly the focus of our foreign policy. Internal focus concerns they were not explicitly part of our focus of our foreign policy. And our influence, I said, was the Gandhian principles also. Ahimsa, satyagraha, sarvodaya, equality. That's why we call this as lofty idealism. Lofty idealism that becomes one of the cornerstones of India's initial foreign policy. All fine here? As then I was saying that 1948 में Jaipur session of INC, in the Jaipur session of INC, okay, INC committed itself to world peace and freedom for all nations. World peace and freedom for all nations. For all nations. ठीक है? And INC also committed to ending imperialism and colonialism. Ending imperialism and ending colonialism across the world. Across the world. ये आपका बैकड्रॉप है. अब इस बैकड्रॉप में what is Nehru's thinking? What is Nehru's thinking? ये नेहरूज का थिंकिंग था. It is called as Nehruvian consensus बोलते हैं इसको. Called as the Nehruvian consensus. ये एक टाइप का पिलर बन रहा है इंडिया या फॉरेन पॉलिसी का. द नेहरूवियन कंसेंसस. तो आपके आंसर्स में ना प्लीज यूज दिस फ्रेजेस. ओके, सो व्हाट आर द की पिलर्स ऑफ द नेहरूवियन कंसेंसस? लिखो. ओके, एक तो इट वाज अराउंड moralistic world guided by the Gandhian philosophy. Okay, Nehru's consensus was distrust for the great powers. अच्छा, by the way, एक चीज याद रहे, although Nehru was tilting towards Russia and socialism, but Nehru was very, very careful against communism. In fact, there was a time when there was the fear that communism might overtake Southeast Asia, Indonesia वगैरह में. And Nehru went out the way to engage the leaders there. He don't get into communism. So Nehru was not a communist. Okay, he was very wary about communism. He says, you know, this is exploitative. Somewhere it is, because they have seen what Russia became after the Russian Revolution and what happened during the world wars. Okay, so when I'm saying distrust for the great powers, this is true for the US and also for USSR. Okay, Nehru was not in favor of communism. Like, he was very clear that this is not the solution to the world political systems. Okay, so this was Nehruvian consensus. अच्छा, इसके बाद में, okay, the third aspect was, now see, 1955, 1953, 54, 55 में, there was this Korean crisis, the Korean crisis and the Korean War. ये कोरियन क्राइसिस, कोरियन वॉर जो है, दिस इज वेयर इंडिया, नेहरू ऑल डिसाइडेड दैट वी डू नॉट वांट टू बी पार्ट ऑफ एनी पावर ब्लॉक. So we refused to be part of any power block, including Russia. In fact, when the Korean War हुआ था, India abstained from voting. It did not take the side of Russia either. Okay, and India called for कि resolve the problem peaceful dialogue के साथ में. Okay, और यहीं से 1955 में the development towards NAM started. The development towards NAM started. So एक बेलग्रेड कॉन्फ्रेंस हुआ था, उसके बाद में एक बांडुंग कॉन्फ्रेंस हुआ था. ओके, तो नैम का जो सीड्स हैं, ये 55, ये जो कोरियन वॉर क्राइसिस में शुरू हुआ था. द कोरियन वॉर, वेयर नॉर्थ कोरिया with USSR attacked South Korea, and South Korea almost got disseminated, and then South Korea with the US support fought back. And then the line was restored. China also became a part of the Korean War eventually. Okay, so this was the scary thing, because the world is just coming out of the World War II ka problems. World War II khatam hua 45 mein, and all of this nonsense started again. So India said ki this is not done. We cannot have any power block allegiance. So Nehruvian consensus mein, I said number one was that a moralistic world, order, distrust of the great powers, and this one, Okay, the development towards NAM. Okay, we refused to be part of. Belgrade and Bandung conference बोलते हैं. And that was the beginnings of the NAM. पहले इसको हम बोलते थे non-aligned countries बोलते थे हम. As the movement, it happened much later, as late as 1976 को we called it as the NAM movement. इसके पहले it was NAM countries, non-aligned countries थे, where Egypt, Yugoslavia, India, Indonesia, they got together. I'll talk about NAM afterwards. Okay, so this was another pillar, the NAM movement. The next was that Nehru Consensus में a very important pillar is a rule-based order, a rule-based world order, a rule-based world order with multilateral institutions, okay, supporting international laws. Okay, so a very important part of Nehru Consensus was to build a rule-based world order. Rule-based world order का मतलब ये होता है that a global system where there is some kind of rules to be followed. ऐसा नहीं है कि जिसकी लाठी उसकी भैंस. I have power, I go and attack. I have got weapons, I attack. I don't have weapons, I can do nothing. I can't complain to anybody. Okay, ये जो World War I, World War II में चल रहा था, it was without any rules, right? Anybody could attack anybody. So Nehru believed that this kind of politics will not be able to solve, okay, the problems of the world. Okay, and the world is becoming increasing more and more dangerous. The world is becoming increasingly more and more disastrous. So we must have some kind of a world order which is based on rules. Okay, और ये rules कैसे होने चाहिए? The rules should be based on certain multilateral institutions होने चाहिए. And these institutions, they should be supporting international laws. There must be very clear do's and don'ts. Very clear do's and don'ts होने चाहिए. Okay, rule-based world order. And based on this, he always talked about collective security. Collective security is something like all countries should get together to decide how to fight a war, who to protect, when to attack. एक type का सोचो, एक world army होना चाहिए, so that we can save the smaller nations, we can save the developing countries from the ravages of the war. The concept of collective security, the concept of international laws होना चाहिए, multi institutions. And see, ये सारा कुछ इंडिया क्यों बोल रहा है? Because India is, as of now, economically and militarily very weak. Okay, it is something like all the Asian nations and all the African nations जो कि निकल के आ रहे हैं from the colonial history. इनके पास ना तो इकोनॉमी है, okay, इनके पास मिलिट्री भी नहीं है. Okay, so what can they be secured with? So they need some kind of a rule system. Okay, इसीलिए given this experience of India and developing world, he's asking for this. That is why he was a very, very strong proponent of the United Nations. Okay, 1945 में UN Charter था. UN Charter is something like the UN का constitution type का था. And India, despite the fact India was not yet free, but India was one of the founding, okay, signatories of the UN Charter. So Nehru had lot of faith on UN. Okay, he said UN is the beginning of this rule-based world order. Okay, UN में rules बनेंगे, UN में we'll have collective meetings, we'll have consensus-based decisions. The UN will have the multilateral institutions. So Nehru was a great supporter. He was a great, okay, proponent of. Okay, so Nehru was a great supporter and a great proponent of the United Nations as an institution. of your nation as an institution. Okay, and he said three things here. He said three things. Number one is that we should work towards global disarmament. We must work towards global disarmament. Okay, global disarmament. We must work towards respecting each other's sovereignty. Work towards respecting each other's sovereignty. And number three, there must be peaceful resolution. There must be peaceful resolution of all conflicts. Peaceful resolution of all conflicts. Okay. No wars, and firm belief in diplomacy and dialogue. No wars and firm belief in diplomacy and dialogue. We can add one point here, we can bracket it down. Nehru had witnessed the brute force of the world wars. Nehru had witnessed the brute force of world wars and how it impacted even the most remote countries and economies. And how it impacted even the most remote countries and remote economies. And hence, he had visualized a relative pacifist model, pacifist, P-A-C-I-F-I-S-T, pacifist model in global international relations. In global international relations. देखो, again ये थोड़ा contradiction है. On one hand, Nehru says that यार हमें किसी हाल में भी झगड़ना नहीं करना, no wars. We can't afford a war, as simple as that. He said कि जहां तक हो सके, as much as possible, we must have no conflicts, no armed. Yet, Nehru was of the opinion India must make a strong navy. India should have a strong air force. Okay, so pacifist तो था, but not 100% pacifist नहीं था. Okay, so this was again example of a fine balancing act. Okay, we are not tuned according to only one direction, but जहां तक हो सके, he said, no point fighting a war. Around these concepts and India's engagement with China, these concepts and India's engagement with China. उस टाइम में Zhou Enlai was the premier of China. Okay, Enlai, E-N-H-L-A-I. Zhou, Z-H-O-U, Zhou Enlai, E-N-H-L-A-I. Enlai was the premier of China. So India, along with China and Zhou Enlai के relationship में, we declared our Panchsheel policy of foreign affairs. India announces its Panchsheel policy of foreign affairs. The 5 principles, Panchsheel policy of foreign affairs. Panchsheel kya tha? The 5 cardinal principles. Write down, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 cardinal principles kya tha? Respect, sovereignty and territorial integrity. Respect, sovereignty and territorial integrity. Number 2, non-aggression towards each other. Non-aggression towards each other. Number 3, non-interference in internal affairs. Non-interference in internal affairs. mutual beneficial relations on equality, mutual beneficial relations based on equality, and peaceful coexistence. And peaceful coexistence. देखो, I don't expect कि आपका इतना ज्यादा क्वेश्चंस इस सेक्शन से आएगा, इतना फंडामेंटल है ये in terms of what India was thinking and how things have shaped. Even after we are broken away from lot of Nehruvian ideas, fact तो ये है कि अभी भी हम एक टाइप का केयरफुल है in terms of the great power games. अभी भी we say that let us not get into a full-fledged war. The only दो तीन बार we have digressed. One was when we fought the war, 71 war, 65 का war, और Kargil we were forced into the war unnecessarily at 99 में. You talk about Kargil, you talk about the recent Balakot वाला जो हुआ Uri and Pelgam के बाद में. All of this has been forced upon us. Otherwise, India is very clear. ना अफगानिस्तान इशू में हमने अपना आर्मी भेजा, ना इराक में आर्मी भेजा, and the same thing even in case of Ukraine. हालांकि India is among the first nation to intervene in terms of humanitarian assistance. HADR बोलते हैं. Humanitarian assistance and disaster relief में India is almost first. India is one of the largest contributions in the United Nations peacekeeping force. But हम very clear हैं कि हम बाकी के झगड़े में नहीं घुसेंगे हम. Okay, we will not be part. I mean, US has tried very hard to include India in all of these conflicts. चाहे वो इराक वॉर हो, यूक्रेन इशू हो जाए और अफगानिस्तान हो जाए. But we are very clear that we will not enter into, and of course, I won't forget the mistake called as the IPKF in Sri Lanka. Okay, bearing these 6-7 events in a history of 70 years, we're very clear we will not be part of any of these conflicts. अभी भी देखो आप, despite the Chinese aggression that we have on the borders, okay, we are having a very restrained, I'll say, reaction, response. Okay, we are very careful in what we say, what we are doing. We are deliberately trying to play it down to some extent कि वो flare up ना हो जाए into a full-fledged war. Okay, so ये एक thinking रहा है, and somewhere I'll say history from Nehru शुरू होता है ये वाला, that we are relatively pacifist. Now, of course, things will change slowly, gradually. Let's see what happens here. तो ये बहुत important part of India's pillar है. ठीक है? अब एक question ये बनता है, coming from here. Now this ये जो Nehru Consensus है. I hope you got the idea of what's Nehru Consensus now. Okay, that is global disarmament, collective security, Gandhian principles, morality, a rule-based order. Okay, and our faith in multilateral institutions, a rule-based order where we want international laws to sort and to solve the problem of the world. We're looking at some kind of consensus-based and wherever possible, a relatively pacifist approach. And of course, we want to be distanced from the great power politics. This is what's called as Nehruvian consensus. Abhi jo Nehruvian consensus hai, the question is, okay, is this idealism? Okay, or is this a realism? This is an important question. And I'll read out a paragraph to all of you here. This is where, your opinion starts mattering. So if you look at the stand, definitely there is a lot of idealism in this. Morality hai, idealism hai. We're trying to be righteous here. Okay, global good, shanti karo, non-violent, peaceful and all that. But there is scholars set who believe, ye realistic bhi tha. What do you mean by realism? Realism basically means, are we conscious about our real conditions or not? Think of this, think of this. Ye paintings mein hota hai. There are certain paintings that talk about God, justice, heaven, earth, hell ki baat ho rahi hai. And God is great, and those remarkable paintings of goodness. Okay? Aur ek hai paintings of poverty, paintings of hunger. Okay, photography that talks about droughts. So this is that morality thing. Okay, God is great and God will take care. ये एक morality वाला पेंटिंग होता है. Somewhere it's also called as the romanticism. Okay, एक imaginary है. Okay, और एक realistic idea है कि दुनिया में ये सब छोड़ो, गरीबी है, exploitation है, war is there, racism is there. Talk about that. ठीक है, तो वैसे ही है in terms of our foreign policy. Are we being idealistic in terms of the lofty morals or are we realistic? Realistic का मतलब होता है, realism मतलब होता है, are you conscious about your own reality, your own concerns, your own strengths and weaknesses, या फिर हवे में ही बात कर रहे हो? Okay, एकदम extreme में this is ज्ञान ज्ञान, बैठे बैठे ज्ञान दे रहे हैं हम लोग. Okay, and this is about the real life conditions. This is a debate here. Is Nehruvian consensus idealism or realism? Okay, now on the face of it, lot of it looks like idealism. Okay, but a scholar set says कि no, this was actually realism. तो सोच के देखो आप 1930s में, 1940s में, 1950s में, what did India have to offer to the world? We are a country जिसमें कि we don't have industrial production. We have our own food and hunger problems हमारे पास हैं. We have poverty, we have farmers, we are exploited. हम world को क्या offer कर सकते हैं? Okay, when a country does not have material power, तब तो India country ज्ञान ही दे पाएगा ना? या फिर keep your mouth shut, कोने में जाके बैठ जाओ और क्या होगा बताओ? You are in a world which is okay, much ahead in many ways. You don't have military power, you do not have material power, you don't have economy either. Whatever be the reasons, you don't have anything else to give to the world. Okay, our people are poor, hungry, uneducated, illiterate. Okay, ऐसे में इंडिया वर्ल्ड को क्या ऑफर करता? Okay, and at same time, हमारे ambitions हमेशा रहे हैं. We wanted to be part of the world order. This was very smart on Nehru कि ये सब चीज छुपाकर, let's talk about this one. And this actually gave India a lot of status. Otherwise, okay, imagine a country which is not yet free. आप उनको बुला रहे हो यूनाइटेड नेशन के चार्टर साइन करने के लिए. कहीं ना कहीं तो एक you have a position, that's why you're being called, right? Okay, you are not a free country, you are a poor country. Your GDP is less than 2 or 1% hai. Yet you are the most important country in the global Commonwealth group of nations. Why? Because of the ideals we talk about. And the fact is, India very successfully managed not to be part of any global conflicts thereafter. हम लोग US से डील कर रहे थे इकोनॉमिकली और रशिया से डील कर रहे थे इन द वॉर, इन द आर्म्स. जो बैलेंस कैसे मेंटेन किया? If it was not for NAM, like it or not, fact is, okay, we got the support of Egypt, Indonesia. Okay, we like it or not, we were supported by the African nations. It was only possible because we had moved towards this. Okay, so it is said that this idealism was India's necessity उस time में. Okay, it was necessity that we divert ourselves from these because ये तो हमारे gaps हैं हमारे. These are our limitations. हम कुछ कर ही नहीं सकते यहाँ पर. Okay, and India's vote mattered for the Russians. India's vote mattered for the US. So this was a very real, hard-nosed, realistic, okay, geopolitical study चल रहा है that we move towards the lofty ideals rather being trapped by our limitations and our poverty. So I'm reading out one passage here. All of you listen to this, okay? I've taken an abstract from one of the pages of the IGNO. IGNO का एक political science का एक chapter है. I like this paragraph. Just listen to this one. It says, while some scholars describe non-alignment as idealism and empty moralism, many others regard non-alignment as hard-headed realism. It was a realistic response of a large-sized country capable of providing leadership to developing world, but which did not have material capabilities of a great power yet. India was one country which had refused to bow to the Cold War exigencies, okay, of the two superpowers. We refused to join the ideological blocs and the military alliances. In the midst of the Cold War, Nehruvian non-alignment was the voice of reason, and independence where the two superpowers were asking the developing countries to choose sides. Non-alignment was the rejection of power politics, bloc politics, proxy wars, military alliances, and arms race. It remains a matter of debate among scholars to view Nehru as an idealist who sought to base Indian foreign policy on ideals, or as a realist who accorded high importance diplomacy in order to circumvent the dangers of the Cold War and the bipolar world. By grounding Indian foreign policy into the concept of non-alignment, Nehru had called for changes in the way the international system worked and simultaneously guarded India's perceived national interest by not joining any power games that could result in wars. Non-alignment ensured our autonomy in foreign policy, which we hold very dearly even now. I hope you understand the idea here, all of you. इसीलिए जब आप debates कर रहे हैं, I mean, there's a whole list of things what we achieved out of non-alignment. So this is the country which is still nascent, a country which is still young, a country that does not have much to show, a country that lacks material power, a country that lacks military power. ऐसे में अपना independence कैसे रखेंगे? मैंने कहा ना, go back there. One of the sole concerns was that we cannot be part of any kind of external arm twisting नहीं कर सकते. And not to get arm twisted, remember, we can't operate alone. I need countries around me. I need to have friends around me. I need to have alliances around me. अकेले हमारी क्या औकात है बताओ? I could have easily been arm twisted any time. So non-alignment, while it was idealistic लग रहा है, but उस circumstances में it was a very realistic and a very realism part of India's foreign policy. Is it okay, all of you here? समझ में all of you online students? Are understanding all of you? Yes, yes. ये एक debate है. I will talk about another speech that Jaishankar ji gave. Okay, and देखो, I will not blame him either because he's part of a political dispensation. He is representing a country and a party also. It's impossible a party that is offering itself as an alternative to Nehru and Congress, okay, can agree with whatever Nehru Congress did. तो उनके lectures में, speeches में कहीं ना कहीं underline area है कि नेहरू जी तो बस हवा में बात कर रहे थे. Okay, but it's not like that. There is a truth in both sides. Okay, no government is completely right and completely wrong. If I introspect on what Nehru is doing, it's a very smart thing to do. And very quickly, we also moved out of it very smartly. Like I said, Indira Gandhi, with 71 treaty with Soviet Union and 71 war, okay, in Bangladesh, हमने almost NAM को side ही कर दिया था. Because we did interfere. The fact is, we challenged sovereignty of Pakistan. The fact is, we got into a conflict and we fought a war for them. It shows that NAM को हमने very smartly side कर दिया. Take all of you. So write 2 lines here. Okay, I am taking the sentences from the IGNOU notes itself. Write down that Nehruvian consensus and NAM is often considered as Nehruvian consensus and the NAM is often considered as okay, idealism, an extreme okay, morality based worldview of India. Extreme morality based worldview of India. Next, write down. However, there are critiques, TIQUE, there are critiques who see Nehruvian consensus and NAM as hard-headed realism, realism. Put a hyphen. Okay, a kind of realistic response, of a large-sized country, that aspired for global leadership, but which did not have the material capabilities of a great power yet. They did not have the material capabilities of a great power yet. Next, the success of NAM and Nehruvian consensus. The success of NAM and Nehruvian consensus was 1, 2, 3, 4. Was number 1, India refused to take clear sides in the Cold War. India refused to take clear sides in the Cold War. याद रहे कि in the Korean War, India did not vote for Russia. Okay, important point है. In the Korean War में एक UN का resolution था, ठीक है. India did not vote against, India did not vote for Russia. ठीक है, तो हम रशियन साइड भी लेना मना कर दिया हमने. Will not do it. ठीक है, while we did not support American ने कहा कि we want to enter with an army. India said no. India did not support the American armed retaliation. At same time, India did not support Russia also. ठीक है, so हमने clear sides नहीं लिया था. This is what is called as that autonomy in ambiguity. We kept ourselves ambiguous. So अभी भी हमारा policy है. Okay, we maintained autonomy in ambiguity. We did not take clear sides during the World War. And number 2 is we refused to join the ideological blocs. We refused to join ideological blocs or military alliances. Okay, India rejected proxy wars. India rejected proxy war. जो 1979-80 में जो अफगान invasion हुआ था रशिया में, okay, India had rejected that, and unfortunately Cuba, which was a NAM country, okay, it voted in favor of Russia, and Cuba was completely sidelined. Fidel Castro was a very pale shadow. He died, he was literally sidelined by India and Indira Gandhi because he supported the Russian invasion of Afghanistan. India said no proxy wars. No proxy wars. India was not in any alliances. India refused to be part of any arms race. Refused to be any part of any arms race. Okay. Third point, next point is NAM ensured India's autonomy in foreign policy. It ensured India's autonomy in foreign policy. It helped India seek US help in industrialization. It helped India seek US help in industrialization, meeting food shortages. Industrialization, meeting food shortages, while also building relationship with Soviet Union. with Soviet Union. The NAM movement helped strengthen. The NAM movement helped strengthen global institutions like the UN. Global institutions like the UN. While India repeatedly called for, while India has repeatedly called for UN reforms to make it more representative, to make it more representative. Now put a star mark. Okay. now सुन लीजिए आप देखो. The mistake बोलें या फिर whatever, okay, of Nehru was not NAM, not the moral issues. The mistake was that we blindly supported China, okay, despite the fact there were enough indications that China is not towing India's line. That was our problem. The 1961-62 का जो war हुआ, that was a terrible blow for Indian diplomacy and for India's foreign policy. इसके पहले काफी signs थे that China probably, हालांकि India repeatedly had supported China in the UN membership. उसमें एक वीडियो है मेरा YouTube में, please look that up. Okay, that whether India gave up its claim for China or for its a permanent seat in UN or not. This was, I think, the main problem of Nehru. You know, the only limitation in the Nehruvian approach was extreme faith in Sino-Indian relations. Extreme faith in Sino-Indian relations, despite the fact China was not sold to India's global strategy. The 1961-62 war of China, the 1961-62 war with China was a major letdown. In Nehruvian consensus. Letdown of Nehruvian consensus. Okay? So I've given you a pillar of what Nehru was thinking, what he was doing, what was the basis of the entire approach, and whether it was idealism or it was realism. एक debate रहा है, okay? Because now we are saying that we are increasingly more and more realistic. We are more and more concerned about India's interests. उसमें भी I'll read something of what Jaishankar ji says. Because India में थोड़ा सा issues हैं. Because if I talk about India's interest first, we sound like a selfish nation. Imagine what Trump did, no? America first में क्या हुआ? America first में Americans lost lot of goodwill. You are a selfish nation. You are an opportunist nation. India doesn't want to do that either. ठीक है? So ये बहुत ही fine balancing act है. Where does the world morality stop and where does India's interest start? ठीक है? So अभी भी, we are maintaining that fine balancing act. ठीक है? That's about Nehruvian. Let's move on now. The next is what happens with the later. So next is Indira Gandhi. Number 2 is Indira Gandhi and changing changing foreign policy. Indira Gandhi and changing foreign policy. यहाँ पर there was a clear break. There was a clear break in India's strategic thinking. And like Nehru, Indira Gandhi was also a very resolute leader, very strong personality थी. ये भी fact है. See, the foreign policies are guided also by personality traits. Because the leadership जैसे सोच रहा होगा वैसे the whole country aligns. Okay, so Indira Gandhi का भी she had a personality trait. So a very resolute leader, a very forthcoming leader, and in some ways very assertive about what India needs. यहाँ पर there was a clear break. The clear break, I said, ये आपका 2-3 important development was. I said one was 1971 का Indo-Soviet friendship treaty. Indo-Soviet friendship treaty. 1971 में. Because देखो इस टाइम में यूएस में प्रेसिडेंट थे निक्सन, and Nixon was again a hard-nosed man. ये बार-बार somewhere, and at this time the US relationship with Pakistan was increasing dramatically. This was a time when Pakistan interests was taken care by the US. उनके यहाँ पे military dictatorship हुआ करता था under Yahya Khan. Yahya Khan was the first man in a major way. He went ahead with the US partnership. So much so that they started to allow for the US base to be set up in Pakistan. Okay. So इस condition में Indira Gandhi was sensing that with Nixon, who is having a very strong pro Pakistan tilt, because those centers were being built, जो US base बनते चला जा रहा है, Air Force base बनते चला जा रहा है. So with pro-Pakistan tilt, she was very clear that she had to have support. So 71 में she signed. This was a tilt towards USSR. और इसी के बाद हुआ, the 1971 Bangladesh War. Bangladesh War. This is an example of, we said, a clear departure from India's Panchsheel policies. अब Panchsheel देखो क्या बोल रहा है? Respect sovereignty. Don't get involved in others' internal affairs. That we will have a peaceful coexistence. This was India's a clear break from the Panchsheel policy. Panchsheel policy, 1971. India had a very, very strong role in ensuring that Bangladesh was created, because us time mein the Prime Minister of Bangladesh was of Pakistan was Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and this is the man who actually got very aggressive against India. Bhutto policies of nuclear weapons शुरू हुआ. Bhutto के अंडर में the policy of bleeding India शुरू हो गया. And during Bhutto, the atrocities committed Pakistan, Bangladesh में immense था. This man, I mean, some theme as a very, very forward-looking and a modern man who was educated from Europe, Oxford, Cambridge, educated थे ये, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. But he had a very checkered history again. Baluch में crackdown इन्होंने करवाया था. So during Bhutto's time, he was very strong anti-India. A very strong anti-India इनका stand था. इस time में Indira Gandhi goes all out against Pakistan. And 1972 में I talked about the Shimla Agreement. This was another very important milestone. Shimla Agreement mein, basically it was between Indira Gandhi and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. And in this agreement, Okay, we had decided that our forces should move back to their previous positions, and Kashmir can be solved only by bilateral. Because देखो इसके पहले क्या हुआ? Kashmir had gone to UN. Okay, with 72, Kashmir वापस हमने UN से निकाल लिया. We said कि Kashmir issue is not what UN will decide. It has to be resolved bilaterally. This was an important. So somewhere the faith in UN जो था, okay, Indira Gandhi is now trying to even that off. Okay, so Kashmir issue was brought back as a bilateral issue to be solved bilaterally. Okay, bilaterally, and okay, Pakistan was forced to at least sign to agree on withdrawing its troops. Or sign to agree on withdrawing its troops. That's why I'm saying Indira Gandhi ke saath mein there was a clear departure from the Nehruvian consensus. A clear departure from Nehruvian consensus. Okay, and remember one more thing here. 1970s and 1980s jo tha na, in some ways this was the peak of the Cold War. They had come very close to fighting a nuclear war, US and Russia. They had come very close to fighting a nuclear war, the peak of Cold War. Okay, so isme again the fine balancing continues. The balancing continues. NAM is there, but NAM is increasingly compromised. Now, Khaska, I said one reason I said was Cuba, okay, voted in favor of Russia's Afghan invasion. NAM was there, but NAM is now compromised. With Cuba, okay, voting in favor of Russia's Afghan invasion. Afghan invasion. Okay, compromised. And India, okay, India, Russia का जो friendship था, okay, it was now solid. Okay, India was majorly supplied its arms, its fighter planes, its weapons. Okay, and 1974 was our nuclear test, Pokhran. All of these are signs of departure. And in 74, the first nuclear test. Buddha is smiling, if you remember that code phrase, yes. Called as Buddha is smiling. Okay. The nuclear test under Indira Gandhi. Under Indira Gandhi. Fine, all of you? So this was, okay, the development post-Nehruvian consensus. Now, then we had a quick discussion. Okay, I said nothing much under Morarji Desai or Charan Singh, को ignore कर दीजिए. Rajiv Gandhi के time में भी, okay, nothing much except for some peace accord signed. The peace accord signed, and the India-Sri Lanka peace treaty. इसके अंडर में India sent its forces, IPKF, Indian Peacekeeping Force, IPKF was sent to Sri Lanka to fight the LTTE insurgency. IPKF, and this was disastrous. ये एक और बहुत बड़ा mistake था. If you look at in foreign policy, one disaster was the 1961-62 war. This was a big disaster. Okay, and the second disaster was this IPKF in Sri Lanka, Indian Peacekeeping Force. ये पहली बार India sending a army for solving some other countries' internal issues. The consequence was Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated. Rajiv Gandhi assassinated. Okay, not much on this. Not much on this. Okay, now 1990s. 1990, 1991, 92. This was again, okay, a very different trajectory. Okay, because world change ho gaya. Okay, the world, okay, from bipolar, it had now become unipolar world. There is no USSR. Okay, Russia is weakened. Okay, now we only have US superpower as superpower. US has, yes. Okay. I said 1990s, 91, 92 का time शुरू हुआ आपका. Okay. The foreign policy of India had a very different trajectory, a very different line of development हुआ. The world is no longer bipolar world. The world is a unipolar world. Unipolar world. Okay. No Russia, no USSR. Russia has become weakened. US superpower, plus there's lot of fear around nuclear proliferation. ये जो bombs हैं रशिया के, वो किसके हाथ जाएंगे? यूक्रेन में, कजाकिस्तान में. A lot of fear about that. What will happen to the global security? Okay, the balance had the global geostrategic balance was disrupted. इसके पहले बैलेंस का नाम क्या था? Anybody knows the name of the balance? It's called as, पहले बैलेंस को बोलते थे मैड बोलते थे, mutually assured destruction. That if US attacks, Russia will attack back. If Russia attacks, US will attack. Called as mutually assured destruction. This was a balancing force. It was a major deterrent. Mutually assured destruction. This was a major deterrent during the Cold Wars. But with this, what happened was, okay, with the decline of USSR, collapse के बाद में ये MAD, this got compromised. The MAD was, so no, there's no challenge to US now. No challenge to US. So इस condition में, there are some changes in India's foreign policy. And remember, okay, India में क्या चल रहा है? India में economic reforms चल रहा है. India में economic reforms are going on. We have PV Narasimha Rao at the helm. Okay, this man was again a very sharp thinker, a very sharp strategist. Okay, a real, I mean, Congress में, Gandhian family में, okay, होते हुए, this man becomes the prime minister, and he does such a remarkable reforms. So people talk about Manmohan Singh, but people forget the contribution of this man. If this man had not allowed, there would have been no economic reform in the first place. And he managed the coalition very smartly. Okay, Congress was not in a thumping majority at this time. But वो manage कर रहे, balance कर रहे थे. This man, very astute and very sharp politician. And a lot of people say that this man did not get his due. He is not revered as much as he should have been. Okay, so इस condition में some of the changes. So there is definite US tilt हो रहा है slowly, gradually. Economics is taking precedence, because we're talking about WTO, we're talking about globalization, we're talking about increasing trade. Okay, so economy becomes a very important instrument of India's foreign policy. Okay. And as a part of this economy, we are talking about Look East policy. Look East policy. And look east policy का important component है, we want to align ourselves with the Southeast Asian economies and the ASEAN. The look east policy. Okay, aligning ourselves with Southeast Asia and ASEAN, look east policy. और इसी time में one major departure was India starts to engage with Israel. अभी तक Israel was not in India's radar. Again, ये बहुत balancing act, remember, because India has maintained its relationship with the Arab nations. India has the world's third largest Muslim population. Okay, so again, एक शुरू हुआ balancing act शुरू हो गया. Because on one hand, we have the Arab world, we are part of the Arab solidarity. हम छोड़ नहीं रहे. At the same time, we also have some overtures towards Israel. Okay, there is a tilt towards Israel. उनको भी लेके आइए as a part of our relationship. And remember, okay, Arab and Palestine continues to be our central focus. We have not given up the Palestine agenda. Okay, इसीलिए it's like in India is constantly in two opposite camps. Okay, India is not giving up Palestine issue. India is still with the Arab solidarity. Okay, India has Arab world में the largest expats are Indians. Okay, the foreign workers जो हैं Arab world में Indians हैं. With the UAE है, Dubai है, Saudi Arabia है, Kuwait है, everywhere Indians. You can't ignore the Arab world. बहुत important part है. At the same time, Israel could be trying to balance off now. Okay, so this is happening during the 1990s under the economic reforms. Okay, PV Narasimha Rao led government. These things have started now. The economics becomes an important part here. Okay, अच्छा, इसी time में a very important new agenda which comes up is India's anti-terrorism stance. Because 1990s onwards, this problem is becoming more and more critical. Abhi tak anti-terrorism was not a part of our global agenda, neither. Okay, and this somewhere is the consequence of the Gulf War, the 9/11, the rise of Al-Qaeda, ये सब कुछ मिला जुला है. The rise of Taliban, ये नया element आ गया in India's foreign policy, that we are now pushing for the anti-terrorism consensus, at the global level. But ये सब होते वक्त में, because India was now talking with US, India was under increasing pressure, from the US to roll back our nuclear policy. Nuclear bomb का policy roll back करो. There's a lot of pressure under CTBT, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, कि आप test और नहीं करोगे. Okay, so India was under the CTPT pressure. India was under the NPT pressure, Non-Proliferation Treaty. Okay, India, and remember one thing, 1990s के time में India का जो missile program is becoming more and more robust. Abul Kalam, Agni का sequence, Prithvi sequence, ये सब साथ चल रहा है. So on one hand, the US is trying to force us to roll back nuclear policy, but what we are doing is we are aggressively pursuing our missile technology. If you sit back and you think on this, you'll realize कितना हम fine line चल रहे हैं. You slip on one side, you will collapse literally. And we are constantly in the opposite camps. The typical proverbial sleeping with the enemy चल रहा है हमारा. ओके, यूएस के साथ हैं भी और नहीं भी, रश के साथ हैं भी नहीं भी, और यही टाइम में ओके इवन विद पाकिस्तान ओके वी आर ट्राइंग टू बिकम फ्रेंडली विद देम, हैविंग समिट्स विद देम, टॉकिंग टू देम, और पता चला कि वहीं अटैक भी कर दिया पाकिस्तान. ओके, वी हैव लाहौर समिट, आगरा समिट, वाजपेयी गोज देयर, पीछे वापस आए, पता चला कि कारगिल वॉर हो गया. एंड जस्ट वेयर थिंग्स आर बिकमिंग बेटर, मुंबई अटैक हो गया, द पार्लियामेंट अटैक हो गया. Okay, so India is constantly playing that balancing thing. Okay, any one side हम tilt नहीं कर रहे हैं. Okay, it's yes, it's a terrorism was a kind of a proxy war going on with us. ठीक है? So these were some of the elements of the 1990s under Narasimha Rao. ठीक है? तो यहाँ से you can again say that the break is happening. Okay, now okay इसके बाद we must talk about two important events. One is I.K. Gujral. I.K. Gujral का we talked about that neighborhood first policy जो था. Okay, the Gujral Doctrine कहलाता, right? If you have heard about this, called as the Gujral Doctrine. Okay, somewhere we wanted to normalize our relationship. So this was our neighborhood first policy. Neighborhood first policy. We're doing this. And Manmohan Singh government, this time the civil nuclear deal. Civil nuclear. Okay, this was a very, very powerful one. ये 2005, 2006 की बात हो रही है. Have an idea about the years, please. ये कब हो रहा है? 2005, 2006 में. And you must also appreciate one thing that इसके पहले, if you look at Vajpayee's government में, this is 1998, 2004 का टाइम है. Of course, इसको आप अलग रखो, गुजराल को अलग रखो पूरा. Keep Gujral thing separate, complete. During Vajpayee government, okay, we have this. We have the second Pokhran test. The second Pokhran test 1998 में हुआ था. Second Pokhran test. Vajpayee के time में there was a lot of efforts to normalize with Pakistan. Okay, Nawaz Sharif के साथ में Agra summit, Lahore summit, and so on. Okay, but इसी time में we also had Pervez Musharraf. Okay, he does the military coup. Okay, और इसी time में 1999 में we have the Kargil war. We have the Kargil war. Okay, and this is the time when I said Pervez Musharraf, he becomes the military dictator, military ruler. Malik ultimately called himself as the CEO of Pakistan and then the president of Pakistan. He declared himself first as the CEO of Pakistan and then the president of Pakistan. ये सब कुछ चल रहा है वाजपेयी के गवर्नमेंट के अंडर में. So we tried peace efforts, we tried to be pacifist, we started this bus diplomacy, बताया आपको मैंने, bus diplomacy, train service शुरू किया हम लोगों ने. Okay, nothing of that really worked out for us. Okay, and finally we have this Kargil war. Okay, we almost ended up in the war. It was a massive, one of the largest build-ups on India's border tha wo. Okay, that all the armies were on red alert. You could have war any time. But constantly there was a parley between India and US and Pakistan. Or isi time, during Vajpayee's time, okay, we also had a visit by Clinton. Clinton came to India. telling us how important India was. The first visit, in these times by a American president. Okay, so this was Vajpayee phase, and then Manmohan Singh's, I said, was a civil nuclear deal, which was the high peak of his foreign policy. High peak of his foreign policy. But Manmohan Singh ke time mein hi, he had the unfortunate Mumbai attack. That again takes our confidence in our peacemaking efforts with Pakistan. With what? हुआ तो हर जगह था, okay, but that was not really as significant. It was a stopgap. Yes, Pakistan की history में तो 5 बार हो चुका है, so no big deal there. Morarji Desai, I remember, had gone on record to say that हम लोग भटक गए हैं from NAM movement, and he wanted to get back NAM, the real NAM, into India again, because he was critical about Indira Gandhi moving out of NAM. Okay, but what he meant by real NAM, we do not know. It never happened eventually. Okay, this was the overview up to Manmohan Singh. Let me see if I'm missing out something. Achha, yes, one more important point, that during Manmohan Singh government, okay, there was tilt towards US, okay, and with US, India realized it had a role to play. It had a role to play for ensuring peaceful rise of China. Peaceful rise of China. Because China is now becoming more and more powerful. Okay, China ka reform shuru kab hua tha? Anybody knows? China's reform started 1978, 1979. Till 80s, India, China almost साथ चल रहे थे in terms of GDP size and trade. 1990s mein, the divergence starts happening. Okay, so China is becoming important, and US realized that it needs India, and India realizes it requires US. The kind of unsaid approach ban gaya tha, that they must move together so that we can check China's rise, and the idea called as peaceful rise of China. Yes. Okay, this I talked about genuine NAM, correct. God knows what he meant by genuine NAM. Okay, all of you fine here? Okay, so this was still the Manmohan Singh's government. Okay, now let us take up the recent phase. Again, 2000, some important milestones during 2004-2014. Important milestones, okay, in 2004-2014. This is the UPA government under Manmohan Singh. UPA government under the Manmohan Singh. Gujarat's policies, just know this, Gujarat Doctrine bolte hain, which is something like a neighborhood first policy. Gujarat said ki aapka jo bhi problems hain, until you address the problems of India's neighborhood, you can't achieve much. Or address karne ke liye kya karna padega? You have to ensure that India starts helping its neighbors without too much of expectations in return. By India Bhutan mein kya comparison hai that I will say that Bhutan and India should be on equal footing? Okay, India Nepal mein, what can Nepal offer India in terms of equal footing? India Bangladesh, or India Sri Lanka, or India Maldives. India is so disproportionately large. India is so disproportionately economically large and powerful. To expect that the Indian neighbors and India can be on same footing is unrealistic, he said. इसमें क्या करना पड़ेगा, इंडिया मस्ट हैव ए लार्जर हार्ट। तो इंडिया, ठीक है आप लिख लो, इन केस यू हैव डाउट, लिख लो आप। तो व्हाट वाज दिस गुजराल डॉक्ट्राइन? ठीक है, आई मीन इट मेक सेंस, यू शुड नो दिस बिकॉज हम इसके बारे में वापस बात कर रहे हैं। गुजराल डॉक्ट्राइन इज एसेंशियली ओके द नेबरहुड first policy. Okay, it's about non reciprocal relationship of India with its neighbors. Non-reciprocal relationship of India with its neighbors. Why? Because of the okay power and size asymmetry of India with its neighbors. Okay, the idea is this word non-reciprocal relationship, that India and Sri Lanka or India and Maldives, India, Bhutan, we can never be equally in terms of contribution to each other. So India has to keep on contributing without too much of expectations in return. Okay, yes. So there is lot of power and size asymmetry bolte hain, imbalance bahut zyada hai. Look at India's size and look at the size of Nepal or Bhutan or Sri Lanka or Maldives or Pakistan for that matter. India is the world's top 5 economies mein aata hai. Okay, $3 trillion economy. How does Maldives compare with that? How does Seychelles compare with that? Or how does Bhutan compare with that? How does Myanmar compare with that? Okay, इसमें idea यही था that India should engage without expecting equal contribution from the neighboring countries. That India or neighboring countries can never be at equal levels. This is something like a bit of generous and magnanimous approach of India. इस केस में we cannot have a hard nosed diplomacy यहाँ पर, हमें हर एक पाई का हिसाब लेना है. Okay, you have to work more with the goodwill rather than reciprocal relationship. So generous and magnanimous relationship and not reciprocal relationship. Okay, so the focus would be more on generating goodwill. और कहीं ना कहीं the objective was to neutralize China. Okay, वही है ना, at the end of the day, what does India have to offer? Okay, if China can offer 10 billion, 20, 30 billion in loans, India क्या offer कर सकता है? India says, let us be at least be kind-hearted, not corner them into one-on-one relationship types. That's the idea. ठीक है, this is called as the Gujarat Doctrine. ठीक है, अलग से आप लिख लीजिए बॉक्स में, help you there. Okay, let's get back to our discussion. The important milestones of 2004-2015. Okay, so इसमें number 1 was, I said, a clear shift towards economic goals. A clear shift towards economic goals. This was one. Okay. Economic goals. So थोड़ा सा we are concerned about India's internal interests now. Economic goals. Okay. Number 2 was look east policy. बताया आपको मैंने. The look east policy. The first time we're looking at our eastern neighbors, Southeast Asia and East Asian neighbors. Southeast Asia and East Asian neighbors. इसमें Japan, also starts figuring in. Okay, in fact, Japan started figuring in during Vajpayee. Okay, but इसके पहले जापान के साथ भी इतना relationship नहीं था हमारा. Now we talk about Southeast Asia, plus also East Asia. Okay, Southeast Asia, East Asia mein, we're talking about Japan. And Japan relationship abhi bahut robust ho gaya hai. Okay, India, Japan, friendship treaty ho gaya and all of that. Again, look East policy, ASEAN, Philippines, Indonesia, all of that. This becomes very important, look East policy. The third important is now with the support of non-European powers, India is trying to influence global governance institutions. India is trying to influence global governance institutions. यहीं पर आता है importance of BRICS. टर्म सुना है आपने BRICS? Okay, पहले BRIC था, now we have added South Africa. Okay, so BRICS is the largest one outside UN in terms of global. और इसका वही था that we have to break or we have to provide an alternative to the Western financial and governance institutions. इसी से आपका ब्रिक्स बैंक भी बना. Now we have BRICS Bank also. Okay, so BRICS one plus India also gets involved in SCO, Shanghai Cooperation. हालांकि Shanghai Cooperation India 2018 में becomes a full member, but the process had started earlier. Shanghai is a kind of security. इसका बहुत वाइड आर्चिंग ऑब्जेक्टिव है. सिक्योरिटी भी है इसमें, इकोनॉमिक भी है. इट्स लाइक अ फोरम ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट हेड ऑफ स्टेट्स. Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Okay, so these two are very important developments of this phase, the BRICS and the SCO. हालांकि SCO में India was added later on. India first became an observer status, and now it is a full-fledged member. In fact, this year, India will take the presidentship of SCO also. G20 का ले चुका है, और एक साल के लिए will take the SCO का presidentship also. It's a very important development. So you should look up SCO, if you are giving examination this year. BRICS and SCO. अच्छा, इसके बाद में, the fourth is India's efforts to access restrictive technologies. I'm talking about nuclear technologies. इसके अंडर में आ गया your Indo-US civil nuclear deal. Okay, India's effort to access restrictive technologies. Okay, and the fifth important development here was that India starts engaging with Pakistan again. Okay, so again, lot of CBMs, Pakistan, CBM, because see, after Vajpayee and Kargil war, there was a kind of a freeze. Okay, this is kind of resuming talks with Pakistan. We tried resolving. Okay, so if you know about resolving Sar Creek, resolving Tulbul Barrage, resolving Wooler. बनिहाल पास तो काफी पुराना है बच्चे. हाँ, I must look that up, but resume हुआ होगा, but Banial Pass has been a passage for a long time. It could be possible. I'm not saying no. I must look that up. ठीक है? तो Tulbul Barrage, Wooler project. इसके अलावा with Pakistan we started Samjhauta Express. We started the Thar Express. We opened up pilgrimage for the Sikh pilgrims. Pilgrimage for Sikh pilgrims. Or along with Pakistan, there was lot of efforts to engage with China also. China ke president and prime minister both came to India. Hu Jintao, Wen Jiabo. With China also, we tried to engage. So we had visits by Hu Jintao. Hu Jintao was the president of China. Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabo. Both had come to India. Wen Jiabo, he was the prime minister of China and he was the president. Isi time mein Pranab Mukherjee also visits China. So we're engaging with our neighbors, China and Pakistan. Yes. 17. Okay. Okay, fine. 17. Yeah, India and Pakistan, they joined together. 17. Okay. So they have come to India now. So example of we are trying to build up, and isi time mein we also get active in the G20 summits. India starts getting active in the G20 summits. G20 summits 2008 में शुरू हुआ था at St. Petersburg. At St. Petersburg. Okay, so again, one more multilateral forum for engaging with the world. These were the key changes during the 2004 and 2014 Manmohan Singh ke time mein, before the present government takes over. Okay, the last one is 2014 onwards. Last is 2014 onwards. So yahan par, like I said, this is a deliberate and a very conscious shift away from the Nehru Consensus. Okay, yahan par humne NAM ko almost we have buried it. In fact, 2017 में वेनेजुएला मीट में first time ऐसा हुआ कि India's prime minister, head of state has not gone to the summit. Okay, 2017 में in Venezuela, it was the meet in Venezuela. Okay, Indian head of state did not visit. So almost like हमने NAM को almost अब खत्म ही कर दिया. We don't care about NAM anymore. ठीक है? Now we are more assertive about Indian interests. Indian interests turn हो चुका था from the time we started off with Indira Gandhi, but now we are saying it in as many words. Okay, more assertive about Indian interests. Okay, now we are very vociferous about any Western or Chinese interference. We are actively countering, okay, wolf warrior diplomacy of China. ये aggressive diplomacy है. चाइना के इसको बोलते हैं wolf warrior diplomacy of China. Yes. ऊपर वाला ऐसे very vociferous, very loud, okay, about any Western or Chinese interference. अब देखो अभी हुआ George Soros said something, okay, पूरा government machinery is now out to discredit that. So we will not take anything quietly or silently. Okay, and you know the tone that our EM speaks with now. Jaishankar ji talks about, okay, that Europe must come out of that misconception. Okay, that Europe's problems are the world's problems and the world's problems are not Europe's problems. Europe must get out of that thinking. So these are some of those traits, very assertive, very vociferous, actively countering the wolf warrior diplomacy of China. Okay, NAM को हमने almost बरी ही कर दिया है. Continue. And very vigorous engagement of Indian diaspora. Very vigorous engagement of Indian diaspora. The diaspora ka engagement had started right from Manmohan Singh times, okay, and Vajpayee times. Vajpayee times ने बताया था, okay, Pravasi Bharatiya Awards has started then, okay, and lot of हमने वो bonds release किया था, okay, to invest into India, okay, but now we are more and more, okay, vociferous there, okay, diaspora, and I said, okay, very important is India-Japan relationship plus also India-Israel relationship, while maintaining, okay, our relationship with Russia and maintaining our relationship with Iran. Russia and Iran ka relationship continues, okay, while we engaging Japan and Israel, okay. However, India continues to, okay, not get into armed conflicts of other countries. Armed conflict of other countries. Yes. Onsa? Yeah, basically, Luki साथ में now start actively engaging with them. We'll take up one by one. अभी मैं क्या करा रहा हूँ? अभी I'm just giving overview. एक historical approach पता होना चाहिए. How the foreign policy has changed. I'm just giving an overview right now. अभी तो मैं detail पढ़ाया नहीं है आपको. I'll take up one by one all the issues here. Okay. Act East policy started from Manmohan Singh itself. Okay, Look East policy with P.V. Narasimha Rao, Act East with Manmohan Singh and with Vajpayee. Okay, so हमने वो गंगा Mekong road की बात कर रहे हैं and all of that. BIMSTEC, okay, is extensions of the Act East policy itself. We'll come back there. All of you fine here till? यहाँ तक ठीक है all of you? Online students? Yes. We also have focus Africa also, correct? The Africa thing, okay, continues with our, okay, in our policies. Now the TK, all of you, is the overview of India's foreign policy through the decades. अच्छा, now I will recommend कि आप लोग एक speech पक्का पढ़ना. मैंने workshop में भी कहा था. Okay, this was the Jaishankar speech 2019 में. Okay, he was addressing the Indian Express का एक seminar था, going का memorial lecture था. You must read that speech. Okay, आप print out लेके, in fact, it will be one of your reference material. How he discusses, okay, how India must not be fixed to any dogmas. So put a star mark and write down this one. Please refer to, okay, Jaishankar's speech, November 2019 speech. November 2019 speech. Okay, and his speech was looking beyond the dogmas of Delhi. Looking beyond the dogmas of Delhi. मैं कहूंगा इस स्पीच को ना आप लोग प्लीज 4-5 बार सुने. YouTube में भी है, उसका ट्रांसक्रिप्ट भी है. ठीक है दिव्या, आई विल ट्राई डूइंग दैट. आई विल शेयर दैट लिंक विद ऑल ऑफ यू. आप देख लेना इसको. ठीक है. So you must read it line by line, make notes out of it. In that speech, लिखो आप, write down. In that speech, Jaishankar ji, he has outlined the following 6 phases of Indian foreign policy. The following 6 phases of Indian foreign policy. And I just want to be careful here that Jaishankar ji is a bit more dismissive about the older policies. Understandable, because political leadership hai. Okay, you cannot, kal agar Congress government aata hai ya some other government comes, I'm sure they'll be dismissive of whatever Modi government has done. Okay, but reality ye hai ki these things don't happen in isolation. So always a continuity. Okay, what Indira Gandhi is doing is taking something from Nehru. What does Morarji Desai do is take something from Indira Gandhi. What does Rajiv Gandhi do is take something from the previous past. What does Vajpayee do? Again, take something from the previous past. What does Manmohan Singh again takes from Vajpayee? To say that one government or one person is shaping everything is a wrong narrative. Okay? So be careful about that part. Otherwise, it's a brilliant lecture. Okay? So he says, the following were the phases of Indian foreign policy. Unke words mein. The first is the 1947 se 1962. The war ka hai. The first phase is 1947 to 1962 or 61 China war. He calls this as the phase of non-alignment. The phase of non-alignment. Okay. You also call this as the phase of optimistic. The phase of optimistic non-alignment. Optimistic non-alignment. It was more about the third world solidarity. It was more about the third world solidarity. And India's objective was to resist dilution of its sovereignty. To resist dilution of its sovereignty. मैंने कहा ना, autonomy हमारे लिए बहुत important है. Autonomy of its sovereignty. The next is 1962 से 71. 1962 से 71. He calls this as the phase of realism and recovery. Realism and recovery, which is looking beyond non-alignment. Looking beyond non-alignment. There was an element of Kashmir's vulnerability. Kashmir's vulnerability because of global pressures. Okay, so this was a break from Nehru. It was a break from Nehru. And it was more pragmatic and more assertive. More pragmatic and more assertive. The third is 1971 से 1991. 1971 से 1991. Started with Bangladesh war. It's called as the phase of regional assertion. The phase of regional assertion. Okay, so our friendship treaty with Soviets, and dealing with the rising US, China, Pakistan axis, dealing with US, China, Pakistan axis. Okay. The fourth phase is 1991 से 98. 91 से 98. वो सब coalition government and economic reforms का time था. Okay. This is a safeguarding strategic autonomy. The phase of safeguarding strategic autonomy with the emergence of the unipolar world. With the emergence of the unipolar world. यहाँ पर economic issues becomes important and the look east policy. And the look east policy. Then is 1998 say 2013. 1998 say 2013. The fifth phase. This is the phase of balancing power. Phase of balancing power. Okay. So it started with India conducting its nuclear test. India conducting its nuclear test. Okay. A BRICS formation. BRICS formation. And somewhere India also taking leadership of. Okay. WTO reforms. Climate change policies. Climate change policies. Consolidation with Russia and Iran. Consolidation with Russia and Iran. Okay. And the last phase, 2014 onwards. 2014 onwards. This is the phase of energetic engagement. The phase of energetic engagement. And India trying the balancing act in a very uncertain world. India trying a balancing act in a very uncertain world. Uncertain because of four developments. Uncertain because of four developments. One is okay, dilution in US hegemony. The uncertain world क्यों बना है? One is dilution in the US hegemony. Okay, America first. Okay, withdraw of US from Afghanistan. ठीक है? US का reluctance to engage actively in Indian Ocean. ठीक है? तो ये एक US का एक प्रॉब्लम चल रहा है. The second is okay, and rise of a very assertive China. Rise of assertive China. Okay, and China's expansionist approach. China's expansionist approach. Okay. Third is increasing signs of global recession and economic slowdown. Okay. Most countries are now inward looking. जो globalization था वो एक टाइप का रोल बैक हो रहा है. Roll back with inward looking economies. And the fourth element is emergence of aggressive umpires. Aggressive umpires. Turkey, Hungary, Russia, Iran. Turkey, Hungary, Russia, Iran. Korea's belligerence. Vikal परसों ने missile testing किया. It fell in the Japanese waters. The ballistic missile North Korea fired. Okay, it fell into the Japanese EEZ in Japanese territory. Okay, so ये बड़ा ही uncertain world है. Okay, plus of course the Ukraine war. एक साल हो चुका. We do not know where it is going. Okay, and again for the first time, India is now part of a kind of a military alliance. जो Quad है. Okay, Quad starts as a military dialogue. I hope you know कि Quad पहले भी था. 2007 में भी Quad था, but Quad was disbanded. Australia walked out of Quad, and 17 में okay, the Quad was again revived. Okay, so पहली बार इंडिया एक military alliance का part बन रहा है. Okay, and the Malabar exercise, if you know about it, Indo-China, Japan, Indo-US, Japan का exercise हुआ, called as Malabar exercise, Milan exercise, MILAN. Okay, so ये एक uncertain times है, transition times हैं, where we must do some balancing. ये 6 phases Jaishankar talks about and 2019 के speech में, and you must read, I repeat, इसको आप please ignore नहीं करना. ठीक है? Okay, next slide down. Next, a quick short discussion. I don't want to leave this one. What are the key principles of India's foreign policy? Principles and objectives of India's foreign policy. Just take a list, please. Okay. Number 1. अच्छा, ये चीज याद रहे, ये principles 100% खत्म नहीं होती हैं. Okay, they might wane off, again come back, again reduce, किसी और फॉर्म में आ जाएगा, पर कहीं ना कहीं ये चल रहा है. Okay, the principles are anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, anti-apartheid, anti-racism, anti-apartheid. ठीक है? Second is avoidance of force in settlement of disputes. ये तीनों साथ लिखना, एंटी कोलोनियलिज्म, एंटी एम्पीरियलिज्म, एंटी एपार्थाइड, ये एक ही पॉइंट है. ओके, इसी से रिलेटेड है अवॉइडेंस ऑफ फोर्स फॉर सेटलमेंट ऑफ इंटरनेशनल डिस्प्यूट्स. ये 2 कॉर्नर है. इसी के बेसिस पे okay, 2 important principles were NAM principle and Panchsheel principle. NAM principle and Panchsheel principle. अच्छा, इसी से related. Okay, the objectives were that belief in a rule-based order, belief in a rule-based order as enshrined in UN Charter, as enshrined in the UN Charter. Remember the year 1945 में UN Charter was signed, and India was one of those founding signatories of UN Charter. Okay, UN Charter के founding signatories में थे, and India was not free at that time. See that one? Plus the objective of equitable and egalitarian international order. Equitable and egalitarian international order. Okay. Next is faith in world peace, and commitment to global disarmament. And commitment to global disarmament. Okay, and okay, commitment to bilateral framework for any dispute settlement. Commitment to bilateral framework in any dispute settlement. तो ये एक प्रिंसिपल्स हो गया, ठीक है, ये आपके हर आंसर में कहीं ना कहीं दिखना चाहिए. Okay, what is India moving towards? Okay, what is the driving objective principles of India? ठीक है, objectives में क्या है, लिखो, write down. The primary is to maintain India's sovereignty and autonomy. Maintain India's sovereignty and autonomy. ये हमारा एक ओवरआर्चिंग एक डिजायर है. Bilateral framework for any dispute settlement. नहीं, somebody repeating that point. ठीक है, प्रिंसिपल्स में है bilateral framework for any dispute settlement. हम objectives बोल रहे हैं. One is that we want to maintain our autonomy and sovereignty in all decision making. ये हमेशा एक डर रहा है हमारा, you will come under the control of some superpower. That's one. Number two is okay, global counter-terrorism framework. Global counter-terrorism framework. Equitable environment protection framework. Next one. Global counter-terrorism framework एक objective है. We must make one. I think you know about FATF, right? जो yes, financial wala, yes. That's one. Then I said we must have an equitable environment protection framework. Equitable environment protection framework. Okay. Next is a non-discriminatory technology transfer regime. Non-discriminatory technology transfer regime. We find the nuclear deals and nuclear agreements as very discriminatory. जो IPR है, जो patent rights हैं, वो बहुत discriminatory हैं. Okay, it is not equitable. We want non-discriminatory technology transfer regime. We want equitable environment. I think you know about CBDR, right? Common but differentiated responsibilities under Kyoto Protocol. Okay, that. के बाद है to promote India's diaspora and India's soft power. India's diaspora and soft power. Okay, and to strengthen India's economic drivers. To strengthen India's economic drivers. Okay. Okay, fine then. That's for today. I wanted to complete 2 more topics, but I think we have overshot already. Revise कर लीजिएगा please. And if possible, आप कल जयशंकर का speech पढ़ के आएं. Okay, जब पढ़ें तो लगना भी चाहिए कि हाँ आप, okay, tomorrow you aspire to become, okay, one of those type of personalities. Divya, be with the notes. Be with the notes. By the end of this week, you should be fairly comfortable with India's foreign policies and whatever is India's objectives in global affairs. Okay, thanks for being patient. Catch you tomorrow. Bye-bye, all of you.